Hey, I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. I've got the Fusee pocket watch here, and this is a chain. The chain goes around the Fusee, which is a series of gears just like on your bicycle. And the smaller gears would provide less torque than the larger gear. The larger gear would provide a lot of torque. And so what you're doing is when the mainspring winds down, there's less torque from the mainspring. So it's accessing the larger gear to provide overall more torque for the watch. So that's how that works. The Fusee spring goes kind of in a slot here, and I'm going to fart with this for a few minutes in front of you guys because what the heck, right? And I'm not sure if I can actually put this in place while I'm under camera because it's really tricky. So you got to put the Fusee chain in, and then it has to hook. If it doesn't hook, then it just comes out like that. Now there might be a problem with the hook for the barrel of the Fusee chain. It may not be hooking for some reason, so I'm going to get in nice and close on that and see if there's a reason for this not hooking. Because the hook looks like a hook. So when something looks like a hook, then why wouldn't it hook if it's a hook that looks like a hook? You got that? Probably not. Alright, there we go. So I think I've got it hooked now. Now what I want to do is put a pair of gloves on. Now for this thing to be, before I put the top plate on, I'd really like to be able to roll this chain around and around the barrel, which means the barrel needs to turn, which means all these gears need to turn as I roll it around. Now I could, in fact, simply lift this up, which would probably speed things up and not have to roll it around in place. But before I put the actual ratchet in here, I could see if I can wind the barrel with the plate on the top. So I'm not sure if that is a better method of doing it because it's going to spin the gears, but it'll be a little safer. So here's the main plate here. All this has been washed, and the ratchet wheel is not in place, which is pretty good. So if I put this on top like that and put this on top like this, I've got a couple of gears that have to find their pivots here. I've got this one found its center pivot. The other one's not so much. Not so much. So now that I have the plate sitting on the top there, I can just turn the key here and wind this. So this could take a while, but I want to get the spring onto the barrel. So not sure if this will be the best method of doing it. It's a little bit tricky. I may have to lock the spring onto the barrel. So what I'm going to do here is take out this gear here, because I think that I don't need it in there right now, and I'm just seeing if I can turn this around and will this lock the spring onto the barrel. And this gear really wants to turn as well, so maybe I take that gear out too. Because all I want to do is load the barrel. And I know there's probably a better method of loading the barrel than this, but let's just pick this up here, right? I'll just pick this up like this and very carefully take out this wheel and then put this back down again if I can. Come on, go back down. I'm gonna have to change my angle here. This is tricky stuff, man. Very tricky stuff. I'm gonna take my glove off here. I need the finger dexterity here to do this. There we go. So now that's inside. My hands are washed, so I'm not too concerned, overly concerned. But now when I wind this on, I put a little bit of pressure on here. And now I'm winding the spring around the barrel, and there's really not a lot of resistance, only the center wheel. And I can get this spring all the way around the barrel, and that is in the unloaded position. So if you were to take the watch apart and the spring was on the barrel, it would be completely unloaded. So my assumption here is that if I wind the spring around this barrel, then I have a watch that's ready to be wound and loaded. So I don't want to go back too far because I'll lose the hook on the other side. I've already oiled the base here. This watch is a little bit tricky to work on, but I know there's some guys out there like Chris Spinner who do work on these kinds of watches, and so if I just get it to right around here, I think, then there's not a considerable amount of force. I want a little curve there before it reaches this end here. So now I've got this situation. And now the question is, this here gear that is interfaces with the center wheel goes in underneath here. So we're just going to put that in place, but I'm going to have to lift this up. It's very dangerous for me. Very dangerous. Lift it up and then pull it out of the way just a bit. Like that. And then this gear goes right in here. There we go. It finds home, and then I want to push this, get this back in place. So again, I got to be very careful because I want the spring to be on the correct side here. So if the spring is running low, I want it to run low around the barrel. Alright, so there we go. That's good there. And it is running low around the barrel. That's good there. So I think I have it in the right configuration. And now I'm going to put this gear in. And I know there's a hat that has to go on this gear that I basically have to put in. So this gear goes, where the heck does this gear go? It's got to interface with this gear here, I suspect. So it goes into one of these places. I'm going to have to look this up for a second and be right back. I don't think it goes there. It looks like it's a nice place for it, but this is not where it goes. And I don't think it goes there either. So I'm going to look this up so I don't screw this up. How's that sound? So I found the home for this gear here, and now I'm going to just deal with the plate here, because I think that I've got to put this back on the plate before I can actually put this down, because the pivot for that is right here. So, and I did clean the pivot, and we have a nice little look on that here. But yeah, I did clean the pivot. So I probably want to put just a drop of oil. There's no cap jewels on here or anything, but let's just put a small drop of oil on there. I can actually oil it after I've put it in place, so I'm not too concerned then. So what I want to make sure too is after I've put this in place, I haven't bent anything on the other side, so I've got to support this properly while I screw this down. Otherwise, something on the other side gets bent. I don't want that. I do have another Myers number 58 movement holder, which might satisfy that problem. I know I'm going to be playing with this for a little while. There we go. So that's in place there, and I'm a hound for matching screws, so that's a good thing. As I was saying before, this watch was probably a quarter repeater at one point in its life, and somebody bastardized it. I'm going to lift this up with my hands as I screw this down, so I don't put any undue pressure on any pivots on the other side while I put the screw in. And once I get it down a bit, I think I'll just grab another Myers number 58 movement holder, because I've got to put a little bit of pressure down on that for the screw. Alright, I've got my Myers number 58 movement holder number 2, and I put this plate in place and it fits nicely right there. So that's good. And it's pretty well lined up with this right now. So this is lined up like that, and this goes right on top just like this. So I can look at that plate and determine where the screws go and stuff like that. But I just want to tighten this screw just a bit. I'm going to get myself a little bit bigger screwdriver. Some of these screws they're ancient. It's funny, they're like curved. And the curve is based on years of somebody turning that screw. So that's that. There is this here which does absolutely zero. Somebody said that that's probably an artifact from when this watch was different, when it was completely populated properly, right? And now there is a the speed up and slow down wheel, lentement and whatever. So that goes in right here somewhere. Let me see if I can figure out where this goes. This goes, oh my god, where does it go? I can sort of see a curve there, so I think it goes right here. Right here, and there's 2 screws there supporting it. So just get one screw in and then flip it around to get the other screw in. There it is there, and here are the 2 screws. Screw number 1, screw number 1. The only good thing is that everything looks huge under a magnifying glass. So when I'm using my airy loop, I'm going to use a smaller screwdriver for this. And I do not want to strip the plates, so just back it up a bit until it finds the hole. And now this should just rotate into place, which it does, like that. I'm not sure if, I think there is a wheel that goes underneath there, so I may have to put in this wheel. I think it's this wheel right here that goes underneath. I don't think I can get it in. I need to put this in first and then put this plate back on. So I'm just going to reverse the process here. I didn't tighten anything, thank God. That screw fits nicely right there, which is nice. And now this wheel here, let me look at where it fits. It fits right into that hole. And I can lubricate the pivot on that wheel just a tad. And I'm using my HP 1300 to lubricate that. Like so. And that just slides around brass on brass. I'm not too concerned with it. It's nice and clean right now. So this goes in here like that. And then this plate goes over the top. And that actually provides a little bit better of alignment. Now I can actually lubricate the edges of that too, but I'll put it on first before I put any lubricant on there. Because it really, I don't know if it needs any lubricant. Not sure if it needs any lubricant. And then put that screw in. So I want to have a shout out to Sonny Morehouse, who's out there, and he runs the amateur watchmaking Facebook group. It's a pretty cool group of dudes who like to do what I like to do. So I joined the group a long time ago. I think I joined the group when Sonny took over because he's a good administrator of that group. It was his birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, Sonny. And I'm following Chris Spinner too, who's pretty professional. He's only been at this for a short period of time, but man, the stuff he's done is amazing. I hope he gets a chance to use his rounding up tool someday. I think he said he was upset because he was able to do a job without the rounding up tool, and he really wanted to use it, right? So there we go. That is able to move now. And then there's an Arc de Triomphe device that goes in now. So let's see if, can I put this in? Will this work? Because this kind of goes around the other way. It's got to make sure I get this the right way. It goes around this way, but it's the other side. So there's an indentation here for the gear, and that goes, the gear goes over like this. And then it's pretty cool, actually. Whoever invented this little rig. It was engineers that were bored one day, and they said, I wonder how we can make a device for regulating the hairspring, or for riding around the hairspring, and the device will work. Well, basically, when I turn this wheel, it turns this here. So now what I want to do is put a little bit of lubricant on there again, like I said. So I'm going to use HP 1300 again on this too. Just hold it down and then spread this a bit. It's got to go into the slot, which it's not going into right now. So there we go. I got some in the slot here. I don't want to over lubricate this because this is a device that's not going to move much in its life. It'll move a bit, but it won't move a lot. But I don't want the oil to find its way down the slot all the way to Mississippi. So I don't want this to be Mississippi oil or Texas oil. Just moving that along the trench here, the Marianas Trench. That's not bad there. And put a little bit on the other side here. And I think the Marianas Trench is like 14 miles down or something in the ocean. That's just crazy to think you can go that far down in the ocean. I think James Cameron has been there. He's a pretty adventurous dude. I guess when you got a ton of money, you can be really adventurous. The problem with adventurous people that have a ton of money is they do dangerous things. And the problem with that is that eventually, and sometimes, it catches up with them. And then they're in deep doo-doo. There we go. So I think that's in place nicely. Now whoever invented this is a pretty smart dude. So, or a female, although those days women didn't do these sorts of things, even though they were smart enough to do them, no problem. But the men were kind of, I don't know if you'd call it chauvinist or just the way the world was back then. But women weren't involved in stuff like that. But thank God for women like Madame Curie, right? So I think that she helped us with penicillin and other things. I think Madame Curie died from radiation poisoning as she was studying the effects of radiation, I think, or something. I can't remember what she was doing. I wasn't around back then. I wanted to be, but I wasn't allowed to be. I want to see if this thing actually moves now. I'm not sure if this key is the right key for this, but I'm going to see if this moves. Oh, look at that. So see the action on that? I do this, I pull it back, and it moves. It moves! And it refocuses my camera. Look at that. So that rides along the hairspring. So when this watch goes back in, I have to make sure the hairspring gets fit into the little slot that's right here. So I'm going to just show that to you up close for a second because I'm that kind of guy. There it is there. And you see that little slot, the regulator pins center screen. So that's what they're used for. So that's that. And this is in place now, so I can drop that down, but I need to see what else needs to go on the face of this watch before I commit to closing things up. Alright, so there is a little thingamajobby doohickey right here that goes on top of here, and that's for slow down and speed up, but I don't think I need to center this first, so it's neither more left or more right. And just center it perfectly like that. And then I'm going to make the bold assumption that when this is centered, this needle is also in the right position. So if I look at this and I have to put the needle down, the needle would be right there. Somebody bent this needle too. It wasn't me, but this needle has been bent. I'm reluctant to bend it back as this metal is old. And there is a chance that bending the back could break the needle. And if I break the needle, I gotta figure out, and it's doable, how to solder on a new needle. But I'd like the needle to point dead center here, which means the gear is like that. So that's not terribly bad right there. So I'll just push this down here with my tweezers. Yeah, I'm leaving it like that for now. I'm looking down here. It could go a little lower, which means I could use my staking set. Again, I'd like to bend the needle, but I'm really afraid. I guess I can solder it back if I totally screw it up, right? Kind of milking it right now. We'll leave it like that. Then I'll get a stake and just sort of pound down on that just a bit. So there's nothing that can't be fixed with a hammer. So my doctor said to me, I said, what happens when I'm replacing my hip? What happens if, what do you do if the hip is not fitting like it needs to be fitting a bit better? What do you do? Like, how do you get that spike that's in my hip to sit down 8 inches? So this might work here. And he said I use a, there we go. He said I use a bigger hammer. And I laughed my ass off. I think that's kind of the answer I wanted. So this guy was pretty good. It's up here in Canada, and the hip replacement in Canada cost me $200 for the room. Everything else is handled by our, as the Americans call, social medical system. And the funny thing is, an Ontario hospitalization card is called OHIP. So if you've got a hip to replace and you have to use OHIP, I think that's pretty funny. So you may not think it is, but I think it is. So the only thing I see wrong with this whole setup is that there should be a spring that's pushing this way. So I may have to make a spring here at some point, because this should be ratcheting, and there's probably a spring missing that would be have used to ratchet it. As well, the screw here, the top screw here, is broken, which means I may have a difficult time fixing that. So I think I may, before I put the plate back on, because I don't have very many wheels left. If you look at the amount of exercise I have left, these are the only remaining components of the watch left, not a lot. And this is the ratchet wheel right here. I have to fix the pivot on the other side, the bottom side of this somehow. And I have to, I think the cage has got a split in it that I think I want to solder somehow, but I'm not going to do that today. And the rest of this is really easy to put on. So the watch should be fundamentally done after that. Done, I tell you. But I think I may want to get this screw out of the plate and then figure out if there is a spring somewhere in this mechanism that goes in here to push that the other way. And if there is a spring, then great. If there is not a spring, I got to figure out what to do, because this won't work. Because if you wind the watch and you're winding it using the your barrel, actually your barrel arbor has the spring on it. So if you're winding that and it doesn't stay, that means the barrel just unsprings. It just lets go. And then this is where the Fusee gear is. So, and I've got it set up really nicely right now, so I don't want that thing to let go. That would be terrible, I tell you, terrible. So I'd like to be able to, for there to be a spring that pushes this way, but it won't work if the screw, right now it's too tight, and the screw is too tight. So this whole click mechanism is not actually going to work. So I've got to figure something out here. So that might be it for today, because I've got to deal with this screw first. Once I've dealt with that screw, I can drop this whole plate down on top here, because I've taken the screw out. I'll find another screw for this position here, or make one, and then I'll find out how to push this towards this gear, because this gear will go on top. This gear here will go on top, and it'll ride on top of the post, or the pivot. Yeah, it'll ride on top of the pivot for the mainspring. It's not letting me grab it. It's pissing me off. It's being a pain in the butt. Anyway, it sits like this. So if I can't spring this, right, then it won't work. This has to push in here. So anyway, so that is the problem is. What is the problem is. So this is together nicely. This works nicely. I've got this in, so the pivot will drop right through there, no problem. All the gears are in the right place right now, and the Fusee is wound around the barrel, which is kind of nice. See if I get in deep here to show you. There we go. Fusee chain is around the barrel, so it's in the position where the spring is unwound. So when I wind this watch, I'll be winding it from the Fusee side around here, and then this will wind the barrel. So that's it. I'm JD. Thank you. Again, thanks for supporting my channel, and again, another shout out to Sonny Morehouse and Chris Spinner, some fine, outstanding watchmakers. So we'll figure out the screw problem and the click spring problem, and then after I do that, I do have a bent pivot on the back end of this balance. That's going to be a challenge, and I noticed that one of the pieces of metal on this nice cage is broken, and I've got to figure out a way of soldering that on, because I think there's a gap there as well, and that's not good, and it may have been part of that whole impact of this watch at some point in time. So we'll deal with that later. So thanks for watching my channel, and I'll catch you later. So I have to figure out some method of pushing this against the click against the ratchet wheel here. And I'm thinking of using an old mainspring. So if I can use an old mainspring, I can probably maybe push it from this side, which will give me more leverage, as opposed to pushing it from this side. The only other thing I'm thinking of is if I put the piece of mainspring between here, this plate here, and here, and it just stays there, it may be enough to push against the back here to allow it to click. So I can just cut off a small piece of mainspring here, heat it up, and then bend it. Kind of look like something like this, like that, so that it pushes enough against that mainspring. So I can maybe even use this end here and just bend it outward, because this spring is of no use to me anymore. So, and I know I can very easily cut it. So if it's like that, as you can see, it does push this towards the ratchet wheel, And if I pull like this, it does move it this way. And the other thing I could do is put a notch in there so that it stays in place, so it doesn't move. That might be a way of doing it. That might be as simple a solution as one can find. So we'll see. We'll see what I come up with. It's got to be brilliant, or else I quit.